Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls of all ages, and welcome to another episode of the Gauntlet, the most unconventional sports talk in the game. Got an action-packed show for you guys tonight. Excited to be here with the crew. Denzel, Dom, JJ, and Lindy is also joining us tonight. Lindy and I used to do the LinkedIn podcast for the Eagles many moons ago, and he decided that he wanted to jump on tonight. Good to see all you guys, and let's go ahead and get the show rolling. Okay, just trying to unmute everybody real quick.
I'm unmuted. Sweet.
I'm assuming that I am.
Yeah, I don't think
I kept
Everyone is
seeing the
but JJ.
request. I kept seeing the request to unmute, but then I would get muted, and I'm like, make up your mind.
Am I
It's
on?
like Oprah and her weight. She's fat, she's thin, she's fat, she's thin.
So, can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I just can't see myself.
All right, for some reason I can unmute everybody but JJ. So, JJ, you may have to unmute yourself.
Blessing
Is
in
that possible?
disguise.
Can
All
you
right.
hear me?
So let's get into it.
I can hear him just fine, yeah.
Let's start with
Yep.
the Gauntlet Grinders, which, as we know, is a part of the show where we discuss last week's games and last week's outstanding players. Denzel, who do you got on your list for Gauntlet Grinder of this past week, or week 10?
All right. Well, let's see here. So, for my AFC Gauntlet Grinder, I actually am going to give it to somebody in a losing effort, and that is because I'm sure someone's going to mention the other guy, but I'm going to give it to wide receiver Jamar Chase. 11 receptions, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns, 24.0 yards per catch. This is another case of what does Chase and Burrow have to do to win? What more do they have to do to win games? Of course, they had lost to Baltimore by 1 point. The ending was kind of controversial. I'm sure that'll come up at some point. But point is, it shouldn't even came down to that. I mean, this right here is where the Cincinnati Bengals have got to start answering some questions because you have Burrow and Chase lighting it up. And just before the show, JJ was saying how Burrow is actually his contender for MVP because he's the reason why they're even still winning games. But Jamar Chase, especially him having the season that he have, 11 for 264, 3 touchdowns, is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. And I'm going to give NFC Gauntlet Grinder to wide receiver Ricky Pearsall for the 49ers. Now, he had 4 receptions, 73 yards, and a touchdown, but that touchdown was his first career touchdown. And this has come full circle considering the incident that happened to him during the offseason where an attempted robbery, he was shot in the chest. This man actually, he came out of it, recovered, and he recovered in time, to hit the field. I think he only missed like the first 4 weeks. But he came in there. He's actually has been an impact ever since he had been back and everything. And for someone to come back from not even a gunshot wound could stop this man from coming back and being a playmaker. Things come full circle for him. I think he's going to be an awesome guy and an absolute pleasure to watch in the years to come. So my NFC Gauntlet Grinder goes to Ricky Pearsall. Back to you.
All right, back to Dom, Detroit Dom. Who's your Gauntlet Grinders for last week?
To put a bow on the AFC, I'll take Joe Burrow again in a losing effort. 34 for 56, 428 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no picks. I feel sorry for Joe Cool, Macaulay Culkin. He's obviously doing everything in his power, and it's not like he's just playing good and they're losing. He's playing great, and they just that defense is not good. The run game has been above average. Chase Brown, he's pretty good. NFC, I'm going Lions cornerback Carlton Davis, 4 tackles, 2 pass breakups, 2 picks, and those are our first and only 2 picks by corners all year. All the rest belong to Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, and Trevor Nowaski has 1. But obviously, it's pretty huge for your team when your quarterback throws 5 picks. If you can go out there and get 2 back for him, thereby cutting the turnover ratio just to -3, and obviously that was a huge win. But yeah, I've been very vocally critical of Carlton Davis all year long, and he's actually stepped it up quite a bit. I dare say I can't remember the last time I saw him get a defensive hold or a pass interference call, because those were running rampant the first 5-6 weeks of the year. But he's cleaned it up and he's playing a lot better. And he's a veteran and he's a leader out there. And I think he's helping bring Terry Arnold along slowly. Another dude that's playing less terrible than he was. Haven't seen him get flagged for a pass interference in a while either. So yeah.
All right, Lindy, that brings us over to you. Do you have any Gauntlet Grinders that you want to shout for Week 10?
Yeah, AFC was a toss up to me, and it's really easy. This was an easy decision. You got two Cincinnati Bengals players playing against one of the best teams in all of football, in the Baltimore Ravens, and I wasn't going to take I wasn't going to take Lamar Jackson because I already had the idea that JJ was going to stay with this guy for this one. I mean, why can't you when he goes 25 of 33 and has a QBR of an 83 out of 100? But we've seen a lot of examples of this type of game for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase combined, and for the example of uh, Chase Brown. Why am I saying him? Jamar Chase in this case, we think about him trying to have some of those opportunities to separate himself from a guy like T. Higgins, and you have almost a 1A, 1B scenario at the wide receiver position for the Bengals. And you look at this being one of those games of that Jamar just continues to separate himself in terms of value to a quarterback. And it was a tough choice for me between the two of them, because not only do you have to have a dynamic receiver like that, such as Jamar, but you also need to have a competent quarterback to throw him the football. So it was a toss-up to me in the AFC between those two. But the NFC, to me, is more of a comical one. And I gave this one to Chuba Hubbard, running back for the Carolina Panthers, in which he the Panthers of all teams, allowing them to contribute in the NFC to just shoving the Giants further down the bottom of the barrel was hilarious to me. And, Bryce Young had a little bit of a pedestrian game, a little above average. You'll take that. But to see Daniel Jones and company and the continued woes of the Giants to play as bad as they did against one of the worst teams in football coming out of last year, they're looking like it again this year, but you still lose to them. And a guy like Chuba Hubbard giving the production that he did, almost 160 yards rushing, man. It's talk about a grinder, literally, for this Gauntlet segment. I don't know how you can make a better choice.
And he signed his extension right before the game, too. Who knew?
Feel bad for Miles Sanders.
Former Eagle, Mr. JJ, do you have some Gauntlet Grinders that you want to shout for Week 10?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Sure do.
I'm going with Marlon Humphrey because his strip fumble is what changed the entire game, and that is the definition of a grind. You're getting killed, looking out of momentum. The offense is stagnant. You make that play, and Marlon is having an all-pro year. Just been continuing to be the best part of this defense, actually playing better, in my opinion, than Kyle Hamilton and this defense, and he changed the game. With Lamar, nothing different. If you ask me, I don't think there's any defense that can really stop him and this offense. So I'm excited to see what he can do. But I feel like I'm kind of starting to get used to these type of games from him. Now, on the NFC side, I'm going to give it to that entire Detroit defense because that second half was all them. That second half was all them. We saw it. We've never seen it in history where the interview was happening and what he asked exactly happens as he said it. And what do? They get not one, they get two. And now I do argue that Houston kind of gave it a little bit easier for them by not doing certain things. But Detroit's defense grinded. And at the end of the day, when you think about grinding, you think about overcoming. You think about changing the narrative or changing whatever was not working before and continue to push through. And that's exactly what they did. So I got to give it to the whole entire Detroit defense because everyone, top to bottom, that line, those linebackers, that secondary, they were grinding.
Agreed.
Yeah, we don't win that game if our defense doesn't pitch a shutout in the second half.
Bingo.
A lot of missed opportunities for Houston in that game, though. So, as much as the Lions have played good, I do want to say that I think the game said more of what the Texans are not than what the Lions really are.
Agreed.
That's just my opinion on the game. But it would be easy for me to just give it to Lamar here, but I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to give it to Mike Williams on the Steelers. Only one catch for 32 yards, but caught the game-winning touchdown against the Washington Commanders. So after last night's loss to the Eagles, are 0-4 against teams with a record over 500. Just wanted to put that out there for the audience that wanted to tell me that the Commanders were going to come into our house and show us how to play. Obviously, that was not the case, but I'm going to put that information out there. You can do what you want with it, but great pass from Russell Wilson. Great catch, Mike Williams catching it. And Steelers win 28-27 as they're going into a pivotal matchup against the Ravens this week. Very exciting game on Sunday afternoon. Then I'm going to the NFC, and I feel like this guy is not really mentioned that much this season, but he's having a good season. Let's talk about Kyler Murray. 266 yards passing touchdown. Also had 2 rushing touchdowns as the Arizona Cardinals rolled the New York Jets. And I got to give it to Kyler, and the Cardinals are sitting on top for the moment of the NFC West. Who's going to be on top when it's all said and done? I don't know. I think it's one of the most exciting divisions because we don't know, man. If San Francisco can get clicking, they got CMC back, maybe they win it again. Or maybe the Cardinals are going to do it this year. Who knows, man? I really was feeling good about the Rams, but they had a stinker against the Dolphins. So this division is totally up for grabs, but definitely a great performance from Kyler Murray.
No, sir.
Yeah, the Cardinals are quietly having themselves a year. The Rams, and I mentioned this on Picked Off, they're kind of having one of these kind of years, and not to mention the Cardinals already are just between the two teams. They're already half game up on Frisco. They stole one in Frisco earlier this year. So if they can keep it rolling, we may very well see them as division champions. And yeah, no one's really talking about them. I got a feeling that if they win a division, the talk will be more about how the 49ers lost the division versus the Cardinals winning it, which wouldn't be, fair because the Cardinals, they're playing ball. And that has to get mentioned. They're playing ball.
Kyler Murray's having a good season. All right, guys, that concludes the show, or this part of the show for Gauntlet Grinders. We'll be back and be ready for the Sports Moron of the Week. Good times, man. And that clip was from the Sports Moron of the Week when John Shear and I were in Kansas City doing the NFL draft. And Mr. Kirk, who was one of our interns at the time, made the comment that Jalen Carter was a reach. If you guys watched the game last night, Jalen Carter just running past people, pushing people over. I would say it's not really a reach. But let's talk about the worst takes and the worst reaches of the past week. Does anybody have something they want to get off their chest? Or
I would love to start.
All right, let's go to Mr. Dom, and he's going to get us started with the Sports Moron of the Week.
Oh, Bronny, you entitled, spoiled, not NBA talent, self-involved prick. I don't want to play road games. I don't want to fly commercial. Fuck you. Get your ass on the plane. Sign some other. It's a safety risk. Guess what? No one outside of the association watching world, they don't even know who you are. They damn sure aren't going to recognize you on a plane. You're just going to look like another tall black guy at the airport. If you want to, granted, you're never going to get out of your dad's shadow because that's a very large shadow, for one. For two, there's a reason you're in the G League. if you want to get back to the league, maybe you should play all those games and get better and pay your dues like everyone else in the G League. Like, how's that making your teammates feel? I'm just going to stop there because I can already feel my heart rate and my blood pressure going up. And if I say anything more, like I said, it could get ugly. But
No,
yeah,
I definitely think you
just
make a
just
valid
just
point. A
play.
lot of guys go to the G League that aren't really NBA ready. They go there for a couple of years and then they find themselves in the league. So going to the G League is not a bad thing.
It's not. But how do you expect to get better if you're only going to play half the games? This dude can't even put up 10 in the G League. You know where he should be? Still at fucking UC or USC playing another year. But he was like,
You
"Oh,
know,
don't worry, my dad will get me drafted. My agent and my dad will tell other teams don't draft me because I want to go to the Lakers." If the dude had some NBA talent, any whatsoever, I wouldn't be bitching. But it's just like I'm sick of it. I'm sick of him. I've been sick of his father.
all right, Mr. Lindy, you're next up on the order. So what's going on, man? You got something to get off your chest?
Nothing out of anger in particular. I think this one's more comedic to me, and it continues to bring itself to the surface, especially in the NFL season. And what our Savage fans did at the link last night post game, they started a chant saying "Thank you, Giants."
Yeah.
for just making such a poor decision in overpaying a quarterback that's completely terrible. And I know it's beating a dead horse at this point, but the better Saquon plays, the bigger the mistake becomes for the Giants franchise in making such a sports moron stupid decision that they did. He was let go for pretty much pennies, and it was a similar situation between Saquon and Derrick Henry. Derrick goes to such a fantastic situation for the Baltimore Ravens, match made in heaven between him and Lamar. And it's turning out to be the same thing for Philadelphia when it was a question to begin with in the first place in the offseason. Like, why is Philly going out and signing a guy like this when they have holes to fill on the defensive side of the football? They already have so many weapons on offense to begin with. And they could have made the argument that why couldn't you have held on to DeAndre Swift? They make an upgrade out of position that nobody really expected them to, and it continues to pay off on a weekly basis. And he became such an integral part of that offense to begin with that really they wouldn't be 8-2 if it wasn't for him. So the biggest sports moron continues to be the Giants for making such a poor decision. And yeah, it's foreshadowing, but at the end of the day, it just makes them look worse and worse.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw the Hard Knocks, but there was a video of the Giants owner, John Mara, that he said if he goes to Philadelphia, he's going to have a hard time sleeping. So
Yep.
I just feel every time that Saquon has a game like this, like how much does that affect Mr. Mara? That's something that comes to me a lot. But JJ, do you have anything currently on your mind that you want to get off the chest?
I think we can put the New York Giants on the podium along with like Skip Bayless and Nick Wrong for like all-time sports morons.
Nick Wrong.
No, I
great.
Nick Wrong is comedically funny. I love
That's great.
Honestly, Nick Wrong was one of the people that said before the season that Saquon's not going to make a difference on the team. But now he was on the show today wearing the Eagles hat saying how Saquon should be the MVP of the league.
Okay, actually, you know what? I'm going to give it to my man. It's not a call out. It's a call out because I am going to laugh at Mr. Emmanuel Acho. Okay, so
he's one of your favorites.
He's a trip. I love him. That's my brother in Christ. But this man, he asked, of course, do you feel sorry for Joe Burrow? Okay, so when they answered the question, and then James Jones went through every loss, he said, how did they lose? What was the turning point against the Ravens, that first one? He threw a pick. What was the turning point against the Chiefs? He threw a pick. What was the turning point against the Washington Commanders? They turned the football over. And afterwards, he was like, wait. Here's the thing.
You even sounded like Acho just now.
They've only played great teams and bad teams. They haven't played good teams in between. And I'm literally sitting there like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, you're saying you want people to feel sorry for him, but last week you had said all the pressure to win this game was on Lamar when his team was 6-3, and Joe Burrow's team was 4-5.
Wayne Casey.
I'm like sitting there thinking, like, bro, just admit it. The boy you had on that 2-point conversion couldn't get it done, but when Lamar needed a 2-point conversion in that game, he got it done. Just admit, as great as Joe Burrow played, the difference maker was Lamar Jackson because of what he was able to do. He had a good point. If Joe Burrow could have ran a little bit more, he might have got that 2-point conversion. And I will say this: keep bringing up this 2-point conversion like he did. It's like they had 2 timeouts, 39 seconds left. Do we not think that? Are we going to sit here and tell me that this Baltimore Ravens team couldn't drive down the field? If you want to say that, I'll put money up on that every single time because I wanted them to get that too because I had no doubt we were going to drive down the field and win. So all this spinning that he is doing, your boy is 1-6 against Lamar. Just let it know that he may be great in other facets, but he cannot beat Lamar head-to-head and move on. That's it. And Emmanuel Acho, unfortunately, doesn't want to do that. And James Jones and LaShawn McCoy are like, so you want to change the schedule? Like, what do you mean? Like, he's a football player. He played. Let it go. But they don't want to admit that. It's okay.
Denzel, it's up to you now.
I actually didn't have one but to expound on what Lindy said. I mean, it's really easy to kind of punch the front office of the New York Giants, but I'm sure they got jumped in the parking lot enough times anyway. Okay, at this point, this is the tank for Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers coming out next year, or you can tank for the next few years and try to get Baby Manning in New York. I don't know, but dude. Whoever made that decision to pay Danny pennies should not be allowed near a little league football team ever fucking again. Because I be goddamn. If that
they never should have drafted him in the first place. They waited an extra year and then they reached for him. They'll probably do the same thing next year and then someone else.
To be honest with you, though, this was the best thing to happen for Saquon Barkley. Not being paid by the Giants.
Yeah, because he went to your team.
He would go somewhere, he would be there, and he would not be having the success like this. You got to remember Saquon is great, but you remember what was around him in New York. A bad offensive line, a bad coaching staff, a bad quarterback.
Saquon Barkley is talented enough.
He's playing with the best offensive line in the entire league. He's playing with an offensive line that has multiple Hall of Famers. Guys that's going to the Hall. Lane Johnson going to the Hall of Fame. He's doing it on a team like this. If he stayed in New York, he would not be getting MVP shouts. As great as he is, he would just be remembered as another player that just wasted his career. So I think it's great for him, and he's got a chance to try to go compete for a championship this season. So I think it's actually the best thing to happen for Saquon Barkley. But my sports moron actually was Mr. Micah Parsons, who's been mentioned on the show many, many times. Now, I'm sure you guys saw the clip, and you can think what you want. The comments that were made was something along the lines of, you feel bad for Mike McCarthy. He's on the last year of his contract and all these things. And he said, yeah, it's above my pay grade, blah, blah, blah. But I care more about, Zach Martin and people like that that's on the end of their career because they've contributed much more than Mike McCarthy ever could in his career. So you could have left that last part out, even if that's true, which it is. But as a player that's one of the best players on the team, one of the captains, one of the leaders, you got that C on your chest. Mm-hmm. It's not a game. It's not a game. And I think that when he's in this type of environment, listen, man, this is not your podcast. You can't just go around saying stuff like this. It's not good for the locker room. It's not professional. And it's not the way that, as one of the franchise players, it's not the way that you conduct yourself by being disrespectful to the coach. It's not okay. So you can love, or hate what Micah Parsons said, or said, well, everything he said was facts. I got no problem with that. but it's not the right place to do that. Things like that should be said behind closed doors. You definitely shouldn't be doing it in the locker room. So the media can run with it, creates a big distraction for the team, which if
They
any
don't
team
need
doesn't
anymore.
deal with that, it's the Dallas Cowboys.
It's Micah Parsons. This man has had chronic diarrhea of the mouth for what, 2-3 years now?
Something like that.
I actually don't even think it was that bad, but I'm not even in the mood to even like dispute.
You don't think it was that bad?
I mean,
Not actually, because I actually had this
Dealing, Tate.
debate at work. That's the reason why I'm just like, I respect the difference of opinion. But to me, when I watched the whole clip, I didn't get anything that people are kind of reacting, even though I understand the last part of it. But it's just, I think it's one of those things where he said a real statement, and I do understand why people wanted to keep it in house. But I think it's just a clear sign that they're frustrated. I mean, last week, Trayvon Diggs went off at a reporter. They're unraveling. So I think it's just a causality of that. But I do understand where you're coming from.
Did you guys see
It
that
may
thing
not
talking
seem like-
about Trayvon Diggs took an IQ test and he got a 59?
Oh yeah.
All right, Denzel, this is going to be the last word on the topic. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, to JJ's point. I mean, and it's subjective. It may not sound like that big of a deal to some people, but we're just keeping it fair across the board. If we're gonna roast the Aaron Rodgers and the Ben Roethlisbergers and whoever of the world for throwing their teammates on the bus, you can't throw your coach under the bus. You just can't do it. It's bad business. So you got to hold players accountable for throwing their coaches under the bus as well. Just keeping it across the board.
This could be another angle. If we say that place is so toxic and Jerry Jones is so crazy, what's the best way to get off that team?
Yeah, I was going to say he's either trying to get off that team or get his coach fired.
What's the best way to get off that team?
So maybe it's actually kind of smart in a way.
Well,
Maybe.
I don't think they want to pay him that money anyways. I mean, if you were Micah Parsons, would you want to stay in Dallas?
Because I also think that, and I think the thing is, and I do think the more Derrick Henry does well, all their players are looking like, bro,
we could have had him.
Bro.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting there hearing their response, and then you're sitting there hearing their responses, and then you're sitting there like, bro.
They could have had Derrick Henry instead. They paid Dak Prescott $60 million a year just for him to stand on the sidelines.
It ain't even about
all right, guys, we got to wrap up. We got more topics to get to.
Unfortunately, not.
When we get back, how are young quarterbacks being handled? We're going to talk about that and get into a really interesting debate. Really excited for that as soon as we get back.
My bad, Jay. My bad, bro.
No, you good, man.
You know me, I talk a lot. I'm about to go out after we get off of this. I'm telling you that.
Me too. I'm going to go watch Mike Tyson kill Jake Paul in the ring, I hope.
So, JJ, I believe it was you that introduced this topic, this idea this week.
Oh,
so
no,
I
that
was
was
going
me.
to let you lead this segment for us and get us rolling with the conversation.
I appreciate that, and it was definitely me, and equally, and Dom definitely chimed in on that as well at this point. So we want to talk about what is going on in terms of rookie quarterbacks and how you guide them and develop them. My argument that I'm presenting is that today's world, the reason why a lot of teams are continually to stay in the same place, having to reshuffle, is that there's no patience, there's no interest in developing a quarterback because we're all over our 20s. We're all of us over our 30s. Some of us are even in our 40s. When you were growing up as a child, there was times that it took a quarterback 2 to 3 years before they started. Even after they started, they still had another 2 years or 3 years to figure it out because it took time. And then we think about the quarterbacks that have been coming out over the years. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, Dan Marino, John Elway, Terry Bradshaw, even though you can argue with him, Jim Kelly, all of them had development in time. Brett Favre had time. Aaron Rodgers, time to develop. The problem I know is that they see teams like Kansas City with 1 year with Mahomes, Baltimore Ravens 6-7 games before Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. They see that and think, oh, we can do it too. Not realizing that even though they started in their first year, they didn't start off the back.
Well, Mahomes did not start in his first year. He sat behind Alex Smith, which Patrick has spoken about that and how that was really helpful for him having Alex.
So
Yeah.
for teams like Cleveland, for teams like Chicago, and this is why it was brought up, is about this whole thing about Caleb Williams. If you do that, then you have no one to blame but yourself as to why you will always be where you are. What is the point of
Oh, Ron
drafting a
Holland.
quarterback if you're not going to invest the time to develop them? I know personally at my job right now, I've made a lot of mistakes, but my manager is still pouring into me because it's a job that I've never done before in a field and a specific fan base I have, client base, a member base that I haven't been around.
Fan
They're
base.
still client member base. They're, Navy Federal goes by members. The more she pours into me, the more I'm actually going to get better. You have to do the same for these guys. And if you don't do the same for these guys, that's why you where you are. You see Baker Mayfield, you see Eugene Smith, you see even Sam Darnold, even though they've been up and down, they're not like what they were back in the day because it took time to develop. So I want to talk to the panel and I want to ask you guys, do you feel like this is something that's going on? And do you feel like if you do agree that it's going on, do you look at these people and look at them thinking like, okay, they're handling this quarterback a little bit different. You got to at least give them time. I have always said a rookie's season is of no consequence to me, whether he does great or not, because it's his little first year. I do not care. It takes time. CJ Stroud, no shade. Jordan Love, no shade. Going a little bit down. Not the same from last year. It takes time.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And in fact, I would have actually go a little bit further back from when you mentioned the Burrows and Lamar Jacksons and even Pat Mahomes, even though he did sit a year. I always said that the draft class of 2012 ruined the game forever, and here's why. Because they saw rookies Andrew Luck, RG3, and Russell Wilson all hit the ground trailblazing. All three of them made the postseason. They were named team captains on their team by midseason. Wasn't it that
you can even go to Joe Flacco and Matt Ryan as well.
Yeah,
that class is we fall in love with that. You're right. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, well, the thing is, and to Jacob Christner's point, this actually lit into the fans. Oh, a quarterback has to do good his first year. If not, he's trash. If not, he's not even worth it. But also the biggest thing I want to point out, and I'm going to keep it short, I'll pass it on here, is to organizations out there, I'm a full believer in, regardless of what the fans think of this dude or not. If you make the decision, because it's not just Caleb Williams, we're talking about here. We had this same discussion with Bryce Young not that long ago. If you make the decision to go to this dude, you stick with him the whole year. If you bench this fool in the middle of the year, you're going to shake his confidence. Bryce Young got brought back in, and luckily he's won 2 straight games. We can see him on his way up. I think he should be traded, but that's just me, okay? But here's my deal. You have to stick with them. So what the coach did with Anthony Richardson, regardless of what he did in the Texans game, that still sent the message of, oh, we lost confidence in him, so I'm going to bench him, But same thing with Bryce Young. And Bryce Young only came back in because Andy Dalton had an injury to his thumb, non-football related. But you have to stick with your guy. You just do, And not only that, but you have to take a look at, okay, why is it that we can't, get more wins? Take a look at the team around them. Lindy just said it. The Panthers are terrible, okay? The Bears... anybody's guess what they're going to be this year. Some people are going to say, okay, yeah, they're like maybe the worst 4 and 5 team. All right. But my point is this, is you got to stick with that dude, because if you sit up here and you play hopscotch with quarterbacks like that, and this guy is supposed to be the franchise guy, you're going to shake up confidence. You're going to shake up his confidence. And
hopscotch. Okay. I want to jump in next. Cause I have an element to this conversation that I want to bring up, which is we have to recognize the pressure that the organizations put on everyone in the organization, not just the players. Let's talk about the coaches. Let's talk about how many coaches get fired after sometimes coaches get fired after a year or two. Sometimes these guys are getting 3 to 4 years max. So if I take a guy in the first round and it's like, oh, we want to develop him, we want to do this, we want to do that, we don't want to rush him to play because we don't think he's ready. There comes a point where the season starts getting rocky, and then you just throw the guy out there before he's ready, and that's what happens. So I feel like that's a unavoidable scenario. No matter what you're going to say, it's always going to continue to happen because these coaches are feeling the pressure and they're like, man, I only got 4 years. So if we start the season 2-6, what am I going to do? So I think that's an element of the conversation that you also have to bring up. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Like, I don't think that every quarterback that comes out is ready to go be that guy from day one. But teams are not
Exactly.
patient.
To your
Teams
point.
don't allow guys to go through the growing pains.
But Lindy, I know you want to go, but to your point though, it's just real quick is that that's also part of the whole situation is because the pressure is the problem. If you believe in development and it's going to take time, there's no pressure in your first year because you're not going to be doing that much great. Kyle Shanahan, I think, went 2-14 or so his first year or so, like thing like that, and then they hit it off. Takes time. You're right. It's all the same.
Lindy?
It's a very it's a very subjective scenario in regards to the organizational structure as to in a way of how every franchise manages it in their own way based on certain circumstances, and I take it in a way as I think sometimes the way quarterbacks are drafted and you look at where they were drafted, well, this guy was the number one pick, this guy was number two, and I think there's a lot of unnecessary stock that goes into the fact that, well, if they're drafted this high, then that means they have to be the cream of the crop. They're very good, this, that, and the third. I think a perfect example in regards to relevancy with James and I with our favorite sports team. We remember back in the 16 draft when it came to Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, they were number one and number two.
They were.
Well, look who's still in the league playing at a high level as a starting quarterback. Not every organizational situation is the same. They're very unique in how these guys are managed, and it comes to how good of a construction you create in putting a team around them in the first place. And that also stems to what James was talking about when it comes to coaching. Is the coaching situation good? Is the front office situation good? Is it good enough to be able to sustain a level of success in giving this player confidence to say that, okay, we have X, Y, and Z behind, like, we're behind your back, we got you. And I don't think Caleb Williams is in a situation for how embarrassing the Chicago Bears have been for so many years. He doesn't have that type of support system there. Anthony Richardson doesn't have that to a degree either, regardless of the experienced quarterbacks that they have, in a sense, between Joe Flacco and Sam Ellinger. Caleb Williams has next to nothing. He has a second-year quarterback that hasn't had very much success in Tyson Bagent, and then they have a rookie that's on the practice squad that hasn't even been elevated to third string. So when you compile all of that as a whole, it's very nuanced and very critical as to how important everything's constructed as a whole. So, I mean,
Matt Eberflus was also a defensive coach, so doesn't really have that pedigree
Yeah.
developing the position.
And he's a
didn't the
holdover.
Bears offensive coordinator just get fired?
The
Yes, he
beautiful,
did.
thing,
So-
the beautiful thing about that is all ties in. It is, it is subjective, but it's like you're doing the same thing over and over, being in this way, trying to develop, and it's not working.
Definition of insanity. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, when are you going to realize to change your behaviors? When are you going to realize that maybe it's not working that way? I mean, we heard Tua straight from the mouth. He didn't want me at all. He didn't have any patience with me. When you have a change and you realize, boom, you feel a little bit better. What had happened with Baker Mayfield with Hugh Jackson? Flat out embarrassed him and tried to set an example out of him. And yeah, Baker had his moxie and everything, but that was who he is as a kid, which was kind of expected. Your job is to cultivate that. But if you have no patience, you have no development, and you let all these other factors come in, at what point you're going to have to decide when is enough enough. Mike Tomlin's been asked to be fired every single time. Is I hear fire Mike Tomlin anymore right now? Nope, I don't think so. Why? Because he took chances and he stood firm on what he's doing. He's developing what he's doing. John Harbaugh was about to get fired, was literally about to get fired. And they actually had an article that came out. John Harbaugh was the my way or the highway. We're going to develop these guys this way. He changed his entire approach and took the time to develop Lamar. We good now. Jalen Hurts. Sirianni is being called for so many different things, but yet he is standing firm and being left with his quarterback. Because again, you're working. If you don't, I also think if you want to do those ways, you're not looking at other people. You're trying to be like, man, I want to be like that. Look at yourself.
Yeah.
Look at yourself. Look at yourself, Chicago, because again, what's the point of recognizing a guy with potential if you're not going to give him a time to get to that potential? And then I'm turning it to the Indianapolis Colts because, again, if you recognize that this guy's a developing quarterback, he's going to need time, you're going to bench him? Oh, great. You're just showing people that you really don't have a clue of how to develop this guy, and you're caving into the media and what they say about you. You have to have some grit and stand true to develop these guys if you believe in them. Now, if you don't believe in them, let someone else get a chance to believe in them.
And in the Indianapolis Colts' case, and
sorry,
Dom,
man. I'm sorry about that, man.
And Dom and real quick, Dom and Jacob, especially proponents of this, not huge fans of AR5 at all. But here's the thing: you made the decision to draft him. No, he wasn't jumping off N1 screens coming out of the University of Florida. But you made the decision to draft him. Therefore, you stick to it. You made that bed. You got to lie in it.
Right.
Well, and you guys are. I think you guys are kind of forgetting something because that situation was more unique than like the Bryce Young situation. Major reason why he was benched was because of what he did leaving the game and how he sent a message to the team. So
here's the thing:
the coaches cannot afford to let that slide, and that's probably much more of a reason why he was benched than his play.
Still proving the point, though, because in development that has everything, not just the field, it's also how you character, it's also how you do things. It's all of it is encompassed. And at the end of the day, you're right. He did say something that probably is frowned upon. But again, if you believe in that person, you don't care what nobody thinks about him. You pull him aside and still coach him and then put him right back out there. At the end of the day, you're basically proving the point that, hey, you're not really putting the time to develop him. So again, to Jay's point, why did you draft him? He's young. He's going to make some mistakes. Baker made some mistakes. Lamar got caught speeding and made some mistakes. They make mistakes, but you got to still believe in them if you do believe in them. Sometimes believing in them means you have to just take people and jump in and questioning your every move. You got to have the gall to do that. And that's why the Colts are in the situation they are, because they don't have the gall to do that. And that's why if Chicago, goes and caves in and stuff, y'all have proven y'all are susceptible to the media. Y'all are susceptible to what people think about you as opposed to what you think of yourself and what you think about that person that you believe in. Otherwise, you ain't believing them at all. You're doing a disservice to yourself and to him, and you're causing yourself to get fired. Because if you know you get fired before the player because that's how it is in NFL, change your narrative. Move on. I get Anthony Richardson said something that was rough or whatever, but you could still build with that. He's young. It's not like he's 38 years old, and even you 40-year-olds like Aaron Rodgers still doing crazy stuff.
It's kind of a double-edged sword when you draft a rookie that high because first of all, every time 5 quarterbacks go in the first round, one of them ends up being a star or at least, a multi-contract guy. Another one will sign a second contract but be mostly a career backup, and 3 are outright busts. But regardless, when you draft quarterback in the first round, it's usually a shitty team with a shitty O-line, not a lot of weapons, either a brand new head coach and coaching staff or a holdover that gets fired after that rookie gets thrown into the fire, doesn't succeed. And then, the situation that Caleb Williams is facing, already lost his offensive coordinator, probably going to lose his head coach, probably get a new GM. That wasn't necessarily, I get it. They had the number 1 pick. They already gave that dude the playbook in February. The draft was in April, so everyone knew they were going to take him. But it's like, what do you do in that situation? Either you let him sit, you let your backup get killed, and you let your high draft picks sit and learn, or you throw them into the fire. But if you throw them into the fire, you got to let them get burnt. You can't do like I'm still laughing about this shit. You can't play quarterback hopscotch. Either you stick with them or you let him sit. Don't bring him in and pull him out because that's how you ruin a dude's confidence. Yeah, there's a almost as high a chance of ruining his confidence if you send him out there and he gets killed and he struggles and he has a losing record and bad numbers, but at least he's learning.
There's a
So
mental.
explain this to me though. Why is it that other quarterbacks were benched and then they became better because of it?
I think there's
Jalen Hurts was completely given up on at one point.
at
He
Alabama.
was benched in the championship, and look where that has taken him.
Some guys don't know how to handle it.
Put out for you guys.
Yeah, that's where
Some guys
where
get
I was
benched and it
going.
crushes their ego. Other guys, they're like, "Damn, I guess I'm fucking up. Maybe I should get better and then earn my job back."
So
Yeah, that's where I was going,
that's-
where Dom was speaking here, and it's a good example that James brings up. Jalen Hurts. There's these individuals are, it's amazing how the age of the player gets younger and younger and younger with the amount of talent that they build upon and possess for them to be drafted as high as they are. The draft selection is not only a projection of their talent, but it's also the level of an investment a franchise is making in the player to be that next franchise guy. And there's a level of mental toughness that these kids turning into adults have to whether build upon or possess or not possess to take them to that next level. And Jalen Hurts is a good example of that. I mean, him and Tua were on one of the best programs in college football at one point at Alabama, and Jalen just didn't sit back. He says, "You know what? I think I can do the same thing. Let me go to Oklahoma and prove myself by myself." Tua can have his flowers. He can have his moment at Alabama, but he didn't just quit and sit on the sideline, and that ended up translating to the NFL level, and he understood that he had to grow up very quick. So at the same time, it's also the organizational responsibility of putting the correct people next to him to understand that, you know what, I have an individual here, I have a prospect here that has the level of maturity that I'm looking for. Let me do my part on that investment and go along with him instead of both sides fighting in a sense and making the wrong decisions to put them behind instead of making the right decisions to move them forward.
But to your point, and I will say this about Jalen Hurts, he got benched, but the next year he got a chance to play before he went to Oklahoma. When you bench a guy and then move on from him, you're proving the point. And when you had said
2 years later,
but agree, but the point is, he got benched. Every player responds different. That's why it's up to the organization. But the moral of the story is you still pour into him and develop him. Nick Saban didn't give up on him after that one benching, and even though Tua won, that next year before he went to Oklahoma, he got a chance to start and go through the games and try to get a chance because Saban again pulled out. I'm gonna still pour into him. When you talk about what they talk about, what's going on with Caleb Williams and Anthony Richardson and all them, they're talking about benching them and leaving them and never going back to them, which is proving the point that when you put this investment into him, and I'm glad that Lindy said that, you're investing something, you're giving up quick, you made a bad choice, and you're a bad business person if you do that. If you make this much investment in someone and then you give up on them quick, you are showing that you're more weak-willed than this player because you're caving into expectations that you may have put on yourself or people putting on you, and you're not performing, and now you don't want to continue taking the heat from people about your decision. You're proving your toughness is not where it needs to be, which goes back to the other guys with a Sirianni, with the Saban, with Harbaugh, a Tomlin, or even like the Carroll. I don't care. I don't care.
The thing with Anthony Richardson is he needs, not only does he need time to learn, he also needs time to develop. Like this dude is more raw than chicken tartare. And Caleb Williams, it doesn't matter. Like I would have stayed in college another year rather than go to Chicago because if he thought he was gonna rewrite that narrative, Jesus couldn't go to Chicago as a quarterback and be
All
successful.
right, last thing, and then we gotta go to non-sports. Last thing before we go non-sports topic.
I want to ask you this real quick. I want to ask you this. Even as good as Jay and Daniels look, he looked like a rookie last night.
Yes, he did.
He looked like a rookie last night.
He's leveling off a little bit.
So are we going to sit here? So it shows the point. Even when you start looking good, you still have problems to look down. He looked like a rookie last night.
Oh yeah, he did. There's a reason for that.
I think you can also paint the picture and ask the question, is that the fault of the player making the decision to declare for the draft in the first place, knowing where they are in terms of their development, or is it also on the fault of an organization deciding to draft somebody as high as they do? Because I think those are both. Those are 2 points in conflict with each other if you can't find a medium.
But they kind of go hand in hand because it is the player. It's on both. The organization and the player, because the player has to be ready to be able to handle that type of stuff.
Yeah, and
it's like, but Anthony Richardson, he was trying to handle it perfectly. He was trying to sit here. The next game, he was trying to learn from Joe Flacco. Obviously, if you know Joe Flacco don't care about tutoring nobody, so he was still
no, he don't. Especially for his short time in Philly, I think.
Yeah, he doesn't care about mentoring anybody.
No.
Let's wrap this up, guys, because we got a non-sports topic to get to, which was introduced by Jay. Jay, what do we have?
So, as everyone knows, going on right now, it's on my TV, as a matter of fact. I'm actually astonished that Lennox Lewis cut his dreads and is bald-headed. But anyway.
God. Really?
Yes. He's bald-headed now. But so in light of the Paul versus Tyson matchup going on tonight, the question I came up with is what boxing celebrities / super matches would you like to see in the ring? In the past, we've seen Nate Robinson, Le'Veon Bell got in the ring, Adrian Peterson got in the ring. Is there anyone who at the past or in the present that you would like to see get in the ring and box for 4 rounds, 8 rounds, or whatever? But we'll start with Dom.
He's too old now, but since I was the A-high, I wanted to see how good of a boxer Sylvester Stallone was, Dolph Lundgren, Mr. T, Carl Weathers. I've been thinking about that shit all my life. Like, I wonder if these dudes could really box. Like, I know that Sylvester Stallone did a fair amount of actual training to be / look like more of a boxer for all of those movies. Who else? I don't know. Yeah, pretty much anyone from the Rocky series.
Okay, you usually like to see them really in the ring. Okay, then. JJ, what about you?
Who was the dude that played Apollo Creed's son? Oh,
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan. Yeah.
JJ?
Y'all pass me because I don't really have anybody I could think of.
You can't think of one guy you'd like to see in the boxing ring?
Like Ray Lewis? I mean, someone.
So wait, are you saying that the person has to fight a professional boxer or UFC fighter? Or they're any two celebrities fighting each other?
Just someone you would
just
like
any
to see
two,
put
yeah.
on the
Any
gloves.
athlete, yeah. Just athlete, celebrity, who you would like to see put on the gloves and get in there and fight. But JJ, we'll give you time to think.
I got a good one because he's got some hella reach. Ben Wallace.
That actually wouldn't be bad. That actually would not be bad.
Ben Wallace versus Ron Artest.
Let's make it official.
Yeah, I just thought of Malice in the Palace. Dang it. That's a good one.
Yeah. Lindy, who you got, man?
Besides Malice in the Palace, if anybody that was involved in that, mine was a little bit comedic because I remember years ago going back to seeing rappers dissing each other and everything, and I thought it would be hilarious I thought it'd be hilarious instead of taking it to rap lines and everything and dropping tracks that Machine Gun Kelly and Eminem would go at it in the ring and see what happens.
No one wants to see two skinny honkies fight.
Well, that's the whole. It's more about entertainment at that point. think it'd be
True.
pretty funny. So
I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen Danny Bonaducci and Jose Canseco, and
Yeah.
this is a good topic. This is fun.
James?
Okay. On the topic of sports beef and sports fighting, as an Eagles fan, one of the greatest beefs of all time was between Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens. So this could be the way to settle this.
Ooh, I like that.
That's a good one.
So we've interacted with Mr. McNabb in the past with Sideline Sports at events. So we know the guy. We know what he stands for, what he's about. So I got my money on T.O. all day. I think he's in better shape. I think he can throw haymakers, and McNabb get knocked out. That's it.
I don't even think it has anything to do with McNabb. If Owens, anything like that. McNabb is just not that guy.
McNabb can't fight.
Yeah, I don't. He doesn't really seem. He's a big dude, but he doesn't seem that tough.
Anytime someone comes in and says, "If anybody else want to scrap, they can go with me," and you say nothing, like you say not a word, and Hugh Douglas is sitting there thinking like, "We fought already, so I know it's got to be you," and you ain't say a word.
I got a good one. Handicap match. Granted, this is usually more so wrestling, but I want to see Jimmy Butler against Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns, minimally.
Russell Westbrook versus Patrick Beverly.
I would have put KD there, but yeah, that works.
Man, shit, we can do a whole show. We can do a whole show on this.
We're talking about like reps. Hold on. Can we finally put 50 Cent and Ja Rule in the ring?
I was going to say
with
50.
The gloves on?
Yes.
Can we finally put them in the ring?
Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why I'm taking Ja Rule. I don't know why.
You ain't. I ain't taking Ja at all. First of all, the man got shot 9 times, 10 times, and came back. That man ain't afraid of nothing. Not a dang thing out there. Sadly, he ain't afraid of nothing but God. But anyway, I was sitting there and saying, when I was talking about this at my job, I was like, Murder Inc. had no business trying to do a rap war with 50 Cent's crew with Eminem. No business. None. That is no point. Ja Rule, you were good, but you are not on 50's level.
And you know what? If we're talking about rappers, one dude that actually a pretty built guy, I'd like to see Busta Rhymes in the ring.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he can sling some heavy leather in there. Yeah, I hear him. And also because he mentioned it at the end of his career about going into boxing, and he never kind of followed up on it. But Brandon Jacobs, the running back for the Giants, he had mentioned that he wanted to get into boxing, and I was like, I'd be curious to see him in the ring.
That's a big dude. I would also love to see Master P against Baby. Battle for the NOLA.
That'd be interesting. That'd definitely be interesting. But yeah, I don't know. We got a minute and a half left. Y'all got anything else?
Man, that was a good ass topic. That was fun.
A good topic.
Short as it was, yeah. I'm pretty sure we're gonna think of other ones like after we get off the air. But yeah, I was like, you know what? I wonder what everyone's takes would be, or who they like to see in the ring, because we're seeing more of these nowadays, especially when we saw Le'Veon Bell get in the ring and everything and such. So yeah, I can expect to see more of these, and we may see somebody in the ring that's gonna shock everyone, and it's gonna sell a lot of tickets. That's what it's supposed to do.
Jamal Williams against his agent, because if I was Jamal Williams, I would be fighting my agent.
I'm surprised somebody didn't say Odell in that kicker's net.
I got the net in 4 rounds.
If you push that net back and it comes back full speed, that joint hurt. That joint hurt.
Yes.
That's why
that could be
fourth round TKO. I got the net.
Odell got 2 appointments then. He got that net and Josh Norman.
Ooh, how about Aqib Talib and Michael Crabtree?
Michael Crabtree, that would be a good one.
Yeah,
that would be a good one.
The wrestling match, a chain snatching match, because we can take it to wrestling too.
Gosh, what was the guy?
I think Talib will feed him them hands, though.
Ooh, how about Cortland Finnegan and Andre Johnson?
Oh, once and for all.
We already saw what happened with that one. That's not even going to be no thing.
How about?
Who is Jalen Ramsey?
How about Jim Harbaugh and Jim Schwartz in a thumb wrestling match?
Trent Williams.
Who?
Sherman versus who?
You remember when Trent Williams was a Redskins? He punched He punched Richard Sherman in the face.
Oh, shoot, he sure did.
I thought you were talking Richard Sherman and Michael Crabtree because his interview.
Well,
that's
Crabtree's got to fight Aqib Talib, and then if he wins, he gets Richard Sherman in the finals.
I think Talib would actually beat Richard Sherman.
Who?
Yeah. Sherman's got that long reach.
I don't think Richard Sherman can scrap like that.
I don't think so either, but he's got that reach. He'll just keep you at bay with that jab. Plus, he's smart. I guarantee you Richard Sherman would be a very cerebral fighter.
I'm trying to think of who else.
Like Mayweather, except Richard Sherman might actually hit you.
Yeah. I think Aqib would feed Crabtree them hands, man. So it had to be between him and Sherman. But Crabtree and Sherman might be a more even matchup than people think.
I just would love to see Stephen A. versus Max.
Distance just will not go away.
Stephen A. getting in the ring.
I would love to see Stephen A. against Max Kellerman. I would love to see it.
Oh my lord, that would be great. That is a great one, JJ.
Max is an expert when it comes to boxing.
I was going to say, Max knows his boxing.
He knows everything about boxing.
Yeah.
Besides, you guys already saw the video where Stephen A. was training with that boxing with that punching bag.
Yeah.
Have you guys
I
seen
hate to say this because I never want to put this out there, but we could get Travis Kelce's ex-girlfriend and current girlfriend going back and forth with each other.
Hey, put them in the ring.
All right.
Last time his ex-girlfriend sat there and said, though, she of course, this is her opinion. She's like, what do I look like going 50-50 on Bill? You know, that's just how she feels.
If we go in there, we may as well put Jason Kelce versus that college kid that was talking that shit at one time.
Oh, man.
A couple weeks ago, yeah.
Hey, he grown enough to talk. He grown enough to get fed them hands. These hands is bisexual. They go both ways. Yop, 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 yop.
All right, man. I think that's it for tonight.
Yep.
I'm about to go catch this undercard and then hopefully Jake Paul dying in the ring.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank everybody for being a part of the show. Lindy, thanks for coming. You guys can catch us, Sideline Sports Network. Tune in to all the great shows. Check out the website. That's where you guys can see most of our work, articles, and all the work that we're doing. You guys can also tune in back to the show Wednesday for Picked Off.
Marcus Sasser, University of Houston.
Wednesday at the same time, where we make weekly picks every week, Wednesday night, on this channel and Sideline Sports channel. You guys can also tune in every Friday for the Gauntlet, same time, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we will see you guys on the next show. Thank you very much.
Good night, Abilene, Texas.
Good night, Augusta, Maine, motherfuckers.